So you're identifying the relevant clinical and forensic questions. It gives you an opportunity in doing so to be clear with the agency about what questions you can't answer, which questions you're not comfortable answering, which questions you think should best be answered by another person or at a later time. And so far, the first two principles has been a process of interaction. It's an interactive process. There's sometimes some drafts that go back and forth, and then eventually you go, okay, we're ready to go. I got it. I think I got it. Now, having received all of that, we move to principle 3, which is decline the referral. We should just put a period right there. Yeah. If it falls outside of your area of expertise or competence. If you think this is over your head, don't do it. If you think you're being used, don't do it. If you think it smells of harassment, don't do it. If you think that you're not qualified to do this particular evaluation, don't do it. If you think it's going to very likely fall into a lengthy, enmeshed, complex litigation that you're not prepared to handle because of your perhaps limited forensic experience, decline it. So no one can make you do a fitness evaluation. Just because the phone rings and they ask for it and it's your client, sometimes the best thing you can do is to say no. Mike and I are competitors in a formal sense. He has an office down the road from me. He has agencies that I don't have. I have agencies he doesn't have. I probably have some agencies he'd like to have, and he has some agencies I'd like to have. I don't go after any of them because Mike's a very competent, qualified psychologist. There's no reason for me to try to do that. And I respect that. I believe Mike does the same thing. But indeed, there are times where we refer to each other for reasons that have to do with it lying just not in my area of expertise. He has an alliance with a physician that allows certain questions to be better answered than I can do in my office. So I think it's important to always look at the referral and say, is it best handled by me, or is it best handled somewhere else? Keep in mind that fitness for duty evaluations are what are referred to as high-stakes evaluations. There's a lot on the table. Not the least of which is for the examinee who can lose his or her job. Yes, Ram?
Relating to your bringing up your colleague, I would imagine you often have done the pre-employment psychological on an employee. Would you disqualify yourself as a
Good question. Good question. The question is, if I have done a pre-employment psychological evaluation, would I consider that to preclude me from objectively conducting a fitness for duty evaluation? The answer is no. I see no conflict between having done a pre-employment psychological evaluation and then being called upon to do a fitness for duty evaluation. I've never thought that pre-employment psychological evaluations are lifetime guarantees. There's no reason to believe that a person who was healthy at one point couldn't become unhealthy at another point. Yes?
Dave, but isn't there an issue with, when they came in for that pre-employment, their understanding it was going to be used for pre-employment, they chose what they were going to tell you or not tell you. Now in that fitness for duty, if you've done the pre-employment, they lose that right because you can go back and read all this stuff that they said before that they may not have chosen to give you then.
So the question is aren't you doing a bait and switch when you have told them in the pre-employment that their pre-employment data is only going to be used for pre-employment purposes and won't later be used for other purposes? Mm-hmm. I've never said in the disclosure statement that it's only going to be used for pre-employment purposes. I never made that warranty.
But isn't that an implied agreement?
No.
I come
This
in
is
for
within the agency.
I give you a blank check, you can use it for whatever you want.
No, it's not using it for what you're using it for the purpose for which the employer has retained you, which is to assess your your psychological health.
At
Remember,
that time for
when,
that
when
position.
the only people who are going to be in this situation are people I have found to be psychologically qualified. So clearly, I'm not biased against that employee. If anything, arguably, I'm biased in favor of that employee. If anybody wants to argue my bias, they'd have to argue my bias pro the employee. Because I found him qualified. I didn't find him unqualified. Yes?
I think this is a legal question, but it would seem to me if you got a referral of a police employee that you had not done the pre-employment on, would you request that individual's pre-employment information?
Absolutely. I would request that pre-employment information. Whether I would get it or not depends on whether it's accessible. Yeah, we don't know whether it's going to be accessible.
But
Sometimes
if
it
you
is.
had seen that employee for that agency, it would be accessible to you.
Absolutely. That's correct.
And is there a,
Yeah, exactly.
is there a point in which the employee needs to give consent for any of this information? Or is this just a free-for-all for us with the employers?
Well, remember that the employer owns the psychological evaluation, not the employee. So it's not up to the employee to authorize its access. It's the employer's authorization that's required. I have no ability to access patient records of that police officer in a fitness for duty evaluation. But the employer does have the right, as you'll see shortly, to compel the employee to authorize the release of those records for purposes of a fitness for duty evaluation.
And specific IA stats and everything?
Pardon me?
Specific IA stats,
Oh, there's, yeah.
Everything is
all of the IA, that's all owned by the employer. No, the employer does not need to get permission from the employee to provide those records to me. We're an agent of the employer, we provide those records. Now, I respect the fact that there are differences of opinion with respect to pre-employment being a firewall from fitness for duty evaluations. I've just shared with you what my opinion is, and I'm not in any way suggesting that there isn't a very legitimate alternative point of view. I just don't happen to share it. But I'm not indicating that I think you're wrong about it. Yes.
Just tweaked a little bit is if you provide voluntary counseling services to that employer.
Oh,
that would be different.
absolutely different. Counseling is the question is, if you provide any kind of treatment or counseling, would that be a firewall for fitness to duty evaluations? Absolutely.
But it's not a firewall if I did that, and now then I can't do the fitness because you can't firewall my brain.
No, that's what I'm saying. You can't do treatment and fitness with the same person. Neither, if you provide treatment, you're precluded from doing a fitness, and if you do a fitness, you're precluded from doing treatment.
Right.
There's a firewall between those two roles.